In this video, I'm going to cover 3 controversial topics that we have here along the Wasatch Front. This is going to be some information that's really interesting about what's happening. We're going to be talking about a development on top of a lake. Yes, a lake. We're going to be talking about a gondola up the canyon, and we're going to be talking about a mall that was torn down and is going to be redeveloped into a massive development. So this is going to be a little bit of a different video than I normally have here on the channel, so I hope you enjoy it. So the first one I want to talk about as we jump into my screen here is we're going to be talking about the gondola that they're considering putting up Little Cottonwood Canyon. Now this is an extremely controversial topic because there's people on both sides of it, and this is something where I can kind of see the pros and cons of each option. Little Cottonwood Canyon services Snowbird Ski Resort and Alta Ski Resort. You've got 2 major ski resorts that are extremely popular here, and they get a ton of traffic. There's been a traffic problem going up and down these canyons, especially on those snow days, for years now. This is a time where you can get backed up and be sitting in line trying to get up the canyon for 2 to 3 hours to try and go skiing at these different resorts. So they have to do something. The Utah Department of Transportation has been looking at this for a couple of years now, and they're trying to come up with what's the best solution for this. The 2 solutions that they're considering are going to be widening the road, adding a dedicated bus lane to try and encourage public transportation, and also to provide a wider road access so they can fit more cars up and more cars down. Or the secondary option is going to be to actually run a gondola from the bottom of the canyon all the way up to Alta Ski Resort. So this would be a gondola where you park at the bottom. They've got a parking structure. You hop on the gondola, ride it all the way up, and then you're at the ski resort. Now there's people on both sides of the argument here. Some people are saying, hey, the gondola is going to be a poor site for the canyon's nature and just what you see out there. You're going to see these big towers. You're going to see the cable, the gondolas going, and it's going to kind of ruin the aesthetic of the canyon itself. However, on the flip side, you've got people saying, hey, if we widen the road, you're going to be looking at additional environmental impact where you're going to see that they're going to have to carve into the mountainside, put up these massive retaining walls. They're going to have to build tunnels where these avalanche routes are at in the canyon to prevent avalanches from coming across the road. Because if that happens, that can actually block down the entire canyon, which will prevent cars from going up or going down until they get that cleared. Obviously, it's a safety hazard as well. So they're going to be building tunnels. They're going to be doing these retaining walls, widening the road, filling in areas on the side of the mountain or the side of the canyon where there's not enough flat land to actually expand that road. And so this is going to be a little bit of the project overview. So there's been 16 transportation related studies over the last 25 years or so. They approved funding for recreation hotspots in 2017, and the Utah Transportation Commission allocated $66 million to Little Cottonwood Canyon in 2017. So with what they said with this is what they're really looking at is avalanche mitigation. Right? If you widen the road, then you've got more cars there, and also that's going to be a safety hazard, but also trying to make it safer for the avalanches that are bound to happen either way. They're also trying to alleviate traffic here on Wasatch Boulevard, which runs along the mountainside from Big Cottonwood Canyon to Little Cottonwood Canyon. They're trying to fix trailhead parking and Little Cottonwood mobility. Now, talking about the avalanches in the canyon that they're trying to prevent, obviously with a gondola, you don't have any worry of that because the gondola is going to be suspended in the sky. But if you do end up widening the road, they're going to have to provide additional avalanche mitigation for the potential avalanches that will happen. So if we zoom in on the map here, it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but if we actually take a look at this, you can see the road runs along the north side of the canyon. And if we actually turn the map a little bit like this, you can see all of these different valleys where the snow will, kind of combine, and as it melts off, of course, then it actually turns into a river and then goes underneath the road into the main canyon river. Now, you can see all of these different areas where you can get these avalanches that come down and they'll actually block the road, and then either the city or the ski resorts, or sometimes both, they have to actually go out there, get their tractors out, and actually start moving snow to clear the road to get it back, to make it accessible again for cars going up or down. So this is something that happens pretty frequently, a couple times a year at least, where the avalanche will actually come down and it blocks the road, and and people can't get past. So obviously widening the road, they're going to have to kind of address that a little bit. Some of the other things they're going to do for this process, the level 1 criteria, this is a pretty intense graphic that we've got here, but I just wanted to point out a couple things. So they're looking to improve mobility by 2050. They want to improve peak hour per person travel times, which means get people up and down faster. They want to be able to meet peak hour demand on busy ski days, reduce vehicle backups on SR 210 and 209, and meet the level of service on Wasatch Boulevard. So this is basically just saying, hey, we want to make sure that this is going to be more accessible and easier for people so it's more enjoyable. They're also also looking to reduce avalanche delays and hazards, reduce traffic conflicts, and improve roadway safety at trailheads, and reduce or eliminate roadside parking. So that's the gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. Probably by the end of this year, we'll have some more updates on it. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and we'll keep you updated on what's going on with this. Now let's jump into the next item here. So this is going to be another development that's actually happening in Holiday. This is going to be at the site of the old Cottonwood Mall, which is a very popular mall back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, before kind of being shut down, and then it became blighted, right? And there was actually some redevelopment plans to redevelop the mall back in 2007, 2008, but unfortunately the company who owned the property ended up going bankrupt, and so the property's literally been sitting empty and just vacant for pretty much the last 10 years. Now this is prime real estate space in Holiday. It's in the heart of Holiday, which is a very upscale area. In fact, Holiday is probably one of the most expensive cities here in Salt Lake County, and so this is prime real estate. This is actually a 58-acre parcel that's going to be used for a mixed-use development. So they're going to be putting some houses in there, they're going to do condos, retail, commercial, some shopping, and then a big portion of it is actually going to be open space. So this is something they've actually started developing just this year. They're making some progress on it. I wanted to just point this out here on screen. They've announced today that the development is underway on Holiday Hills, a 58-acre mixed-use project located at the former Cottonwood Mall site in Holiday, Utah. Now, as you can see here, this was actually put out on April 1st of 2020. So for the last 2 years, they've really just been doing all of the underground and flat work there at the property. So they've been running gas lines, power lines, the cable lines, the sewer system. They've been putting all of that in, all of the infrastructure that's needed. And then they're actually have started going vertical over the past, I'd say probably 9 to 12 months. And there's actually some life, starting to show up there where they've got buildings in the air and they're actually developing this area. So this is really exciting here. This was a very controversial thing when it first came out. There was a lot of people who were totally against the development of this. There was other people who said, yes, we need to do something with it. And so there's been a lot of back and forth over the years for people, to try and come up with something that's going to work for everybody. And they kind of finally settled on this plan. So I'm going to zoom in here on this project map and we'll take a look at this here together. So this is the 58-acre parcel. You've got Highland Drive here along the south side, and then Murray Holiday Road, which kind of runs here on the west, the left side of the map here. And you can see that this is all color coded, right? So they've got retail, they've got restaurants. Everything here in red is going to be like fast food restaurants, sit down restaurants. They've got a whole bunch of different options. I'm sure there'll be coffee shops and yoga studios, all that type of stuff. They're going to have some entertainment options. So it looks like they're going to have a theater as well as maybe some other very small type of entertainment facilities. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it'll be interesting to see how it comes together. They're going to have a tiny bit of office space. So you can see there's a little bit of blue here that's going to be office space. They've got parking garages. So right here in D, E, this one here, G, and then over here as well. So there's quite a few parking garages actually. This is what they've started building already so they can give people somewhere to park as they come to this area. So they've got the parking garage. You're going to have a ton of open space here kind of on the this is going to be the east side of the project, but here at the top of the page for what we're looking at. And this is going to be all green space right here. And then you're going to have a couple of areas here. I don't know how big this is. It looks like it's probably, a couple acres at least, but they're going to have some residential lots over here on the south side of the property. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting about this is they're actually doing, this is going to be kind of like a high rise, if you will, which is really unique for Holiday overall. There's not a lot of development in Holiday. It's kind of an older area. A lot of it was built in the 60s, 70s, 80s. So it is a kind of an older area. It's mostly single stories, 2-story homes. There's not a ton of like high rise buildings. Even 3, 4, 5 stories is extremely rare. So this will be interesting to see this going in here, but they're going to be doing residential above these parking garages. So they're going to have parking, maybe underground for one floor, and then main floor, first, second floor for the garage. And then they're going to do residential units above that. I don't believe they've said exactly how high they're going to go on these residential units, but I imagine it's going to be at least somewhere between 5 and 10 stories high for the residential spaces here above parking garage D and E. So this is really cool here. And then lastly, they've got some residential townhomes. This shows pink, which is going to be right here along the south edge. So they've got townhomes going in here, those couple lots there. And yeah, that's the Holiday Hills development. So this is going to be rolling out in multiple different phases. This is probably going to take, if I had to guess, somewhere between 5 and 10 years before being fully completed, but it'll be really cool to watch the progress happening here in Holiday. Let me know in the comments below if you live in Holiday. Are you interested in this project? Are you excited about it? Are you totally against it? I want to know what your thoughts are. Even if you don't live in Holiday, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about this type of project, because this is a really extremely unique type of property going into Holiday. Lastly, I want to talk about another one here that's extremely controversial. I think this is probably the most ambitious and probably the most likely one to not really gain any ground or momentum with it. So they're actually looking at building a couple of islands. I shouldn't say just one island. They're actually looking at building numerous different islands in Utah Lake. Now, Utah Lake is in Utah County. Utah County, the actual metro area kind of wraps around the east side up along the Wasatch Mountains, and then you've got Utah Lake, which takes up a large portion of the western side of the valley. Now, this is a lake that's only 8, 10, 12 feet deep. It's pretty shallow overall, and they're looking at actually dredging this out and then taking all of that sand and dirt and rocks and actually building, it says up to 34 human man-made islands. So right here, you can see I've got highlighted, this would be one of the biggest projects of its kind in the country and maybe even the world. At least 4 roads, 34 human-made islands amounting to 18,000 acres, 190 miles of new shoreline, LEED certified communities, and a $6.5 billion plus price tag spanning 15 years. This is one company's plan to deepen Utah Lake and use the dredged material to create those islands, all in an effort to combat toxic algal blooms and invasive species. This is ambitious, right? So this is a really interesting project. You can read this article here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just wanted to point out a couple of items here. This project would take roughly 15 years to complete if everything goes as planned, and would be rolled out over 5 phases. The 34 human-made islands would amount to roughly 18,000 acres, and the company says that about half of that would be for development, which would range from high-end homes to affordable housing, and the rest of it, the other 9,000 or so acres, would be for, you can see actually right here, I didn't highlight it, but you can see that this is going to be 8 estuary islands and 8 recreation islands that would make up the remaining 9,000 acres. Lastly, 4 of them appear to be through roads transporting people from one side of the lake to the other. So if we actually jump over here and take a look at this map, it's a little bit small, but I'm going to try and get zoomed in here and see if we can take a look at this. So right here you can see all of the different lakes, so they are all of the different islands. So they've got a lot of small ones kind of on the edges and the perimeter, and then they've got a few main big ones, one here at the north, or actually I should say 3 here at the north end of the lake, a bunch in the middle, and you can see these roads running across from one side to the other. So over here is where you've got Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain up here, Lehigh on the north end, and then kind of coming down into Utah County where you've got Orem, Provo, and Vineyard. So it looks like this road would probably come out of Vineyard, run all the way across the lake and get you over to Saratoga Springs. And I think that's actually, if they don't end up doing any of these man-made islands or anything as ambitious as they're talking about, even if they built a road across the lake, that'd be a pretty game-changing project, because it would actually allow much easier access to get from the west side of town over to like Provo or Orem. There's a lot of students, there's a lot of employees who work in Provo and Orem, but they potentially live in, let's say, Eagle Mountain or Saratoga Springs, and they have to actually commute all the way around the lake in order to get there. If they built that road across, that could save a lot of people 10, 15, 20 minutes on their commute, and so I think that's pretty significant. It'll be interesting to see if they even at the very least do that. So you can see all the different islands here. They've got it color coded by the different phases that they would be implementing here. But with that being said, guys, I mean, this is a really ambitious project. I don't know if this is actually going to go through. This is something that I think is pretty unlikely to go through, to be totally honest. Again, there's people on one side of it saying, yeah, let's do it. There's people on the other side saying, no, let's not do it. This is not worth it, for environmental reasons or development reasons or cost reasons, whatever the case may be. There's people on both sides of it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video that's a little bit different and you're thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate here in Utah, I want to be your trusted real estate resource. Reach out to me. You can send me an email, cody@fastutahhomes.com. I love hearing from you guys. I've helped people move in from out of state. I've helped people right here in our own backyard make that move here and buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Or even if you're looking to build a home, I'd love to help with that as well. So send me an email, cody@fastutahhomes.com. It's here on the screen, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.